Sophia Parker stepped into the grand lobby of the luxury resort, her heels clicking softly on the polished marble floors. The scent of fresh flowers mingled with the crisp sea air that drifted through the open doors. She paused for a moment to take in the surroundings: towering columns, glistening chandeliers, and guests lounging by the plush couches, all creating a picture-perfect atmosphere of wealth and relaxation. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, a break from the grind of her hectic life. A week of sun, sand, and family time. A chance to reconnect, to relax. But now, as she stood before the receptionist, a slow, creeping sense of dread began to settle in her chest. The young woman behind the counter smiled politely, her fingers fluttering over the keyboard. "I'm so sorry, Miss Parker," she said, glancing up at Sophia with a faint trace of embarrassment. "I can't find any reservation under your name." She hesitated, her voice dropping slightly. "We have bookings for your family members, but nothing for you." Sophia's smile faltered. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, a flush of humiliation she could do little to control. She had called weeks in advance, double-checked the details, even confirmed everything with the resort staff. So how was it possible that her reservation had vanished? She forced a calm expression, though the pit in her stomach widened. "There must be some mistake," she said, keeping her voice even. "I booked a room weeks ago, under the name Sophia Parker." The receptionist glanced at the computer again, then back up at her, her discomfort growing. "I'm terribly sorry, Miss Parker. I don't know what happened, but I'm afraid there's nothing here." Sophia nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in her throat. She tried to keep her composure, but the sting of rejection was unmistakable. She turned away from the desk, her fingers gripping her purse tightly. She wasn't sure whether she was more embarrassed or angry, perhaps a mix of both. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of what was happening. Her family was already here. They had their rooms. Why had hers been forgotten? Or worse, deliberately overlooked? As she walked toward the seating area, her eyes drifted toward Olivia, who stood at the far end of the lobby, leaning against a pillar, arms crossed. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on Olivia's lips, and for a brief moment, Sophia's heart sank. Her sister's gaze was sharp, calculating, and she knew, without a doubt, that Olivia was enjoying this moment, enjoying her discomfort. Sophia could feel the weight of the years pressing on her. The years of being the forgotten one, the one who worked too hard to matter, the one who couldn't live up to the image of perfection that Olivia seemed to embody effortlessly. Olivia, with her flawless hair, her designer clothes, her perfectly curated life. Sophia, on the other hand, had earned every inch of success, through late nights, sacrifices, and endless self-reliance. And yet, in this family, she had always been the outsider. She watched Olivia for a moment longer, then turned away, forcing herself not to react. She wasn't going to let her sister see her crumble, even though inside, everything was unraveling. As she moved further into the lobby, the weight of the situation hit her fully. Olivia's smug expression, her gleaming eyes, told Sophia everything. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. And it wasn't the first time. How many times had she been left out in the cold while Olivia basked in the warmth of their parents' favoritism? Sophia tried to shake the thoughts from her head. She had made it this far on her own. There was no reason to let Olivia's subtle cruelty affect her now. She had to keep it together. But as she caught a glimpse of her parents near the reception desk, the feeling of isolation crushed her chest. They stood there, silently watching, but not moving to intervene. No reassuring words, no support. Just the cold, indifferent stares that always seemed to follow her, as though she wasn't truly part of this family. The receptionist awkwardly stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm truly sorry, Miss Parker. I can assist you in finding another hotel nearby if you'd like." Sophia nodded, her smile thin and tight. "I'll be fine." As she walked away, the sound of Olivia's voice reached her ears, sharp and biting, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Well, looks like the black sheep didn't make the cut this time. Sophia's steps faltered for just a moment. Her heart clenched, the words sinking into her like a needle. Olivia's voice had always carried a venomous undertone, but today it was louder, sharper, cutting deeper than usual. Sophia's throat tightened, and for the first time in years, she felt the sting of rejection like a physical blow. She kept walking, her heels clicking against the marble floor, but each step felt heavier than the last. What had she expected? For her family to actually care? To be a part of their perfect little world? A world where she was nothing but an afterthought? Sophia pushed open the glass doors to the outside, the warmth of the sun momentarily lifting her spirits. She needed to breathe, to clear her head. She had to stop letting her family's treatment control her. But something inside her stirred, a quiet, steady resolve. Maybe this time things would be different. She wasn't going to just accept this any longer. As she walked away from the hotel, feeling the weight of the situation pressing against her chest, a quiet thought echoed in her mind. This was just the beginning. As she walks away from the reception, feeling like an outsider in her own family, Olivia casually comments to their parents. "Well, looks like the black sheep didn't make the cut this time," leaving Sophia to wonder just how much her family really cares for her. Sophia walked away from the grand lobby of the resort, her steps echoing against the marble floor. The sun had set, casting a soft golden glow over the horizon, but to her the world felt distant and cold. The sting of being ignored by her family, the sharp realization that once again she had been left out, settled heavily on her chest. She could hear the laughter of other families around her, the joy of people who belonged, and the bitter contrast of her own isolation. It wasn't the first time. As she reached the quiet corner of the resort, a secluded spot by the beach, Sophia let her gaze drift to the crashing waves. The rhythmic sound of the water offered little comfort. Her mind was too loud, filled with memories, each one more painful than the last. Her parents smiling proudly at Olivia's every accomplishment, while she was left to fight for scraps of attention. The countless times she had felt invisible, overlooked, her successes diminished by the shadow of her sister's perfection. Sophia had always known she was different. She had worked tirelessly for everything she had. Her job, her success, her independence. Olivia, on the other hand, had never had to lift a finger. Everything had been handed to her. Her perfect life, sponsored by their grandfather's wealth, seemed effortless, and every step Sophia took was compared to her. No matter how hard she tried, it was never enough. She closed her eyes, pressing her fingers against her temples, trying to chase away the flood of emotions. But they wouldn't leave. Not today. Not after what had just happened. The lack of a reservation, the silence from her parents, the smirk from Olivia. It all brought back old wounds. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a message. She wasn't part of the family's image, not really. To them, she was the outcast, the one who didn't fit their perfect mold. Sophia's phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. She pulled it out, staring at the screen. It was her grandfather's name. She had always been close to him, her only true supporter. When the rest of the family had praised Olivia for her social media posts, their picture-perfect vacations and flawless persona, her grandfather had always said, "You don't need their approval, Sophia. You've earned your place on your own." His words rang in her ears now, offering some semblance of comfort. Sophia touched the screen to call him, her finger hovering over the call button. She stopped herself. What would she say? Would she tell him how hurt she was? How she had been cast aside once again, left standing in a fancy lobby, a stranger in her own family? Or would she ask for help? Plead for sympathy? She didn't need sympathy. She needed justice. With a deep breath, she hit the call button. The phone rang twice before her grandfather's steady voice came on the line. "Sophia, how are you, dear?" She leaned back in the chair, staring out at the ocean. The sound of the waves didn't reach her. Her thoughts were too loud. "I'm fine, Grandpa," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. I need to talk to you about something." He paused. "Of course, sweetheart. What's going on?" She hesitated. The weight of the conversation hung heavily in the air. She had spent so long internalizing the hurt, never confronting her family directly. But now was different. This wasn't something she could just let go. Not anymore. "They've done it again, Grandpa," she said, her words a little sharper than she intended. "They've ignored me, left me out like always. I thought it would be different this time, but it's not. They're still the same." Her grandfather's voice softened. "You don't have to accept that, Sophia. You've always known that." Sophia stared at the ground, the sand beneath her feet now seeming like a distant memory. She was tired of being the afterthought, tired of constantly striving for their approval, tired of pretending that their neglect didn't affect her. But more than anything, she was tired of being silent. "I'm done," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'm not going to just accept this anymore. I'm done playing by their rules. It's time I take control." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment Sophia wondered if he had hung up. But then she heard his voice, calm and reassuring as ever. "You've always known what's right, Sophia. You've always had the strength to stand on your own. I've watched you, and I've seen you grow. You don't need anyone's approval, especially not theirs." She swallowed hard, the words hitting her like a wave, but this time it didn't knock her down. This time she stood firm. "I'm going to confront them," she said, a sense of purpose growing in her chest. "And I won't back down." Her grandfather let out a soft sigh, his voice low and steady. "I'll take care of it, Sophia. You're not alone in this, but be careful. You don't need to lower yourself to their level. You can take control, but do it with dignity." Sophia felt a rush of relief wash over her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone in this fight. She had someone on her side, someone who believed in her. "Thank you, Grandpa," she said, her voice breaking slightly, but it wasn't sadness. It was relief. Finally, someone was listening. Finally, someone understood. He chuckled softly. "I've got your back. Always have, always will. But now you take charge. It's time they saw who you really are." As the call ended, Sophia stood up, wiping away the tear that had slipped down her cheek. She was done being the family's punching bag, done being the invisible one. She wasn't going to let them walk all over her anymore. Sophia turned toward the horizon, where the last rays of the sun dipped beneath the waves. The future ahead of her felt vast, uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like her own. As she ended the call with her grandfather, he told her he'll take care of it. "You're not alone in this, Sophia," he says, leaving her with a sense of both relief and anticipation for the inevitable clash to come. Sophia's heart raced as she pulled up to the massive iron gates of her grandfather's mansion. The driveway seemed endless, winding through towering trees and manicured lawns. It was a place of history, wealth, and old-world charm. She hadn't visited in years, but the familiar sight of the grand estate, perched on the outskirts of town, brought a sense of calm to her. This was her heritage, the legacy she had been denied, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. The grand stone steps greeted her as she climbed the porch, her thoughts swirling. As the door swung open, she was met by her grandfather's warm smile. His eyes, though, seemed to hold something more. A knowing look, as if he had been expecting her arrival, as if he had been waiting for this moment to come. "Welcome, Sophia," he said, his voice calm but strong as it always had been. He stepped forward, pulling her into a hug, the kind only a grandfather could offer. A hug that made her feel like everything was going to be okay. But it was the look in his eyes that caught her attention. He had always been her rock, the one person who believed in her when no one else did. And today, as he stood before her, she realized he wasn't just offering his comfort. He was ready to fight alongside her. "You're here finally," he said, stepping back to look at her. His gaze lingered a moment too long, as if weighing her carefully, before he spoke again. "I've known for some time that you've been struggling with them. You don't need to carry this burden alone anymore, Sophia." Sophia swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. It had always been him, her grandfather, who understood her, who saw beyond the perfection the rest of the family had created. He knew the truth about the Parker family, the truth Sophia had only recently begun to see herself. She followed him into the drawing room, the rich scent of polished wood and leather filling the air. The room was filled with family heirlooms, old portraits, dusty bookshelves, and golden-framed mirrors, but it was the knowledge of what lay hidden in the walls of this house that gave it weight. Her family's history, their wealth, and their power had always been out of reach for her, but today she realized it didn't have to stay that way. Her grandfather gestured for her to sit, then made his way to a cabinet in the corner of the room. He returned with a manila folder, the edges worn from age. "I've been working on something," he said, his voice low yet steady. "Something that will help you get what's rightfully yours." Sophia looked at him, her heart skipping. "What do you mean?" He opened the folder, revealing a set of documents. "This is the new will," he said, his fingers tracing the lines of the pages. "It ensures that you'll get the inheritance you've always deserved, your rightful place in this family." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. The documents before her were more than just legal papers. They were the key to her future. She reached out and touched the pages, her fingers trembling slightly. The realization hit her hard. This was the moment. The moment she would stop being overlooked. The moment she would reclaim everything she had worked for, everything her family had tried to take from her. Her grandfather continued, his voice unwavering. "I've watched as they ignored you, treated you like you were invisible, and I've seen them take what wasn't theirs. I know what's been happening behind closed doors. I've been keeping track of the finances, the secret dealings, the lies, and I've made sure you won't be left out again." Sophia felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with a bitter taste of resentment. Her grandfather had always been on her side, but the weight of everything she had endured hit her all at once. How could they treat her this way? How could her own family dismiss her so easily? She glanced at the papers again, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. Her grandfather had been working in the background for years, protecting her when she hadn't even realized it. "What happens next?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. Her grandfather gave her a small, knowing smile. "Now, it's your turn to take control. You'll expose them. You'll show them that you're not someone to be ignored. This isn't just about money or inheritance. It's about justice." Sophia nodded, the weight of his words settling in. This wasn't just about taking what was hers. It was about making her family see the truth, the hypocrisy, the betrayal, the years of being the outsider. She wasn't going to stand by any longer. As if on cue, her grandfather picked up his phone and began typing a quick message. "I'll send them something, a little test, to see if they're ready for the truth." Sophia watched as he composed the email, the anticipation building in her chest. She couldn't help but wonder how her family would react. They had no idea what was coming. Her grandfather set the phone down and turned back to her. "This is just the beginning, Sophia. But it's your beginning, the start of you taking back what's yours." Sophia's mind raced. For so long, she had been waiting for someone to stand up for her. But now she realized it wasn't just about waiting. It was about action. She had the tools, the support, and the knowledge. The game was in her hands. Her grandfather stood up, his gaze steady on her. "I'll be here when you need me, but the rest is up to you. Take the first step, and we'll handle the rest." Sophia stood, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She was no longer the bystander. She was no longer the one who had to settle for scraps. It was her turn now. Her grandfather's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced down at it and gave her a knowing look. "The first message has been sent. Let's see how they respond." Sophia's anticipation built as she glanced at the phone screen. A sense of power filled her. The path was clear now. She wasn't going to be the passive one anymore. The first sign of her family's downfall had begun. Her grandfather sends an email to her family, a cryptic message to test the waters before the real action begins. Sophia's anticipation builds as she waits for the first sign that things are shifting in her favor. Sophia stood at the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The view from her parents' mansion was beautiful, but it felt empty. The opulent estate, full of expensive furniture and lavish decorations, was nothing more than a facade. Everything her family had worked for, everything Olivia had built her life around, was built on lies. The truth was starting to surface, and Sophia knew that everything was about to change. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was her grandfather. "Everything's in motion now, Sophia." His calm voice came through the line. "The first stage has been set. Your family is about to face the consequences of their actions, but it's still too early to reveal all." Sophia's pulse quickened, a mix of anticipation and anxiety flooding her chest. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. The plan had begun, and now she had to see it through. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. "Are they reacting?" Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Not yet," her grandfather replied, his tone measured. "But they will. Stay strong, Sophia. You've got the truth on your side. Just be patient. It's only the beginning." Sophia nodded, though he couldn't see her. She didn't need to be reminded of the importance of patience. This had been years in the making. The next few days, perhaps even weeks, would be the hardest. But she wasn't going to let her family win. Not this time. "Thank you, Grandpa," she said quietly before ending the call. As she set the phone down, she glanced at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back at her was different from the one who had arrived here all those years ago, the one who had quietly accepted the role of the family outcast. Now, she was in control, and she wasn't going to back down. The dinner at her parents' house was exactly what she had expected: extravagant, stiff, and full of carefully cultivated smiles. The grand dining room was set with crystal glassware and fine china, as it always was for family gatherings. But tonight, the atmosphere was different. There was an undercurrent of tension that Sophia could feel in her bones. Her family, the ones who had always treated her like she didn't belong, were now faced with something they couldn't ignore. Olivia, as always, was seated at the head of the table, her hair perfectly styled, her designer dress sparkling under the chandelier light. But tonight, her usual confidence seemed somewhat shaken. Every so often, Olivia's eyes would dart to her phone, as if expecting a call, and when none came, her expression would harden. Sophia noticed this. She noticed everything. How her parents, once so composed, now appeared more anxious than usual. Her mother fidgeted with the napkin in her lap, while her father's brow furrowed in deep thought, though he said nothing. They were all caught in the middle, torn between their loyalty to Olivia, the golden child, and the growing realization that Sophia was no longer someone they could ignore. The dinner proceeded as usual, the clink of silverware against plates and the hum of polite conversation filling the space. But Sophia's mind was elsewhere, her eyes never leaving Olivia. Olivia was trying to maintain the illusion, to keep up the facade of the perfect life, but Sophia could see the cracks. It was all crumbling, piece by piece. As the evening wore on, Sophia felt the quiet victory of knowing something her family didn't. The first stage of her plan was working. Her grandfather's cryptic email had already gone out, and it had begun to stir the waters. Her family, who had lived in the bubble of their privilege, was about to be shaken awake. Just as the main course was served, Olivia's phone buzzed. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked it up, and Sophia could see her sister's face change as she read the message. Olivia's eyes flicked up to meet Sophia's, and for a split second, Sophia saw something she hadn't seen in years: fear. She was beginning to realize what was happening. Olivia's phone buzzed again, and she excused herself from the table. "I'll be right back," she said curtly, her voice tight as she walked out of the room, phone pressed to her ear. Sophia could hear the faint sound of her sister's voice, raised in frustration as she stepped into the hallway, but she didn't follow. She didn't need to. Instead, she focused on her parents, watching them as they exchanged nervous glances. They, too, were beginning to realize that the game had changed. But for them, it wasn't just about losing power over Sophia. It was about losing their precious lifestyle. The life they had built on their grandfather's wealth, on their ability to ignore the truth, was slipping away from them. Olivia returned to the table moments later, her face pale. She didn't sit down right away. Instead, she stood by the door, her eyes scanning the room as if trying to piece together what was happening. Sophia's mother cleared her throat, breaking the silence that had settled over the table. "Olivia, darling, is everything all right?" Olivia didn't answer immediately. She stared at her phone for a moment as if weighing her options. Then, with a sharp breath, she finally spoke, her voice laced with tension. "That email. From Grandpa. It's not just a random message, is it?" Sophia met her sister's gaze, but she didn't respond. She didn't need to. She could see the panic starting to set in. Olivia had already realized that the walls were closing in. The truth was coming for them. "I don't know what you mean," Sophia's mother said, her voice strained. Olivia turned toward her, her voice cracking. "Grandpa's sending signals. He's letting us know. Something's coming." Sophia watched her sister unravel, a quiet satisfaction washing over her. Olivia, the untouchable one, the one who had always seemed immune to the consequences of her actions, was finally facing the repercussions. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. And just as the tension reached its peak, Olivia stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind her. Sophia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She knew the next move was hers. As the evening continued in uneasy silence, Sophia's mind raced. She had them exactly where she wanted them. Olivia storms out of the dinner in frustration, but not before blurting out a detail about the family fortune that surprises Sophia. This hints at a deeper secret that could turn the tables completely. Sophia sat at her kitchen table, the dim light above casting long shadows across her apartment. The night had felt heavy, the echo of her family's tension still ringing in her ears. She had never felt so close to the truth. And yet, so far from the life she had once dreamed of. The family she had hoped to belong to, the one she had tried so hard to win over, was nothing more than a fragile house of cards, teetering on the brink of collapse. The evidence was spread out before her. Papers, account statements, and old records she had gathered over the past few days. The weight of each document felt heavier than the last. As she sifted through the papers, the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with chilling clarity. Her sister Olivia had been hiding a portion of the inheritance. Sophia had suspected it, but now she had the proof. The question was no longer about what Olivia had done, but how far she had gone to cover it up. Sophia's fingers hovered over a set of forged documents. The signature on one of them was familiar. Her father's. But something was wrong. She could feel her stomach turn as she realized the truth. Olivia had manipulated the accounts, diverting funds into hidden accounts and forging signatures to ensure she would inherit more than her fair share. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. "Only the truth can set you free." Sophia took a deep breath, knowing that the truth would destroy her family's carefully crafted image. But it would also be her liberation. No longer would she stand idly by while Olivia got away with everything. It was time to take control. She stood up, pacing around the small apartment, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders. It wasn't just about the money. It was about everything. The ears of Sophia reached for her phone, staring at the contact list. She scrolled until her grandfather's name appeared. He had been her ally, her guide. He had always believed in her. And now, he was counting on her to... She dialed his "Hello, Sophia." Her grandfather's voice came through the line, calm and steady, as always. "What's the matter, Dee? I found it," Sophia said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside her. "I found the evidence. Olivia's been hiding a portion of the inheritance. She's been forging documents and manipulating the accounts. I have everything I need to expose her." Her grandfather was silent for a moment. "I knew she had been up to something," he said, his voice thick with understanding. "But I didn't want to push you too hard. It had to be your decision when you were ready." Sophia clenched her jaw. I'm ready now. I have to confront her. I have to stop this. I'll be here, Sophia. You've got this. You've always had the strength. Just remember, this is about more than just the money. It's about taking control of your life. Don't let them make you feel small again. She hung up the phone, her grandfather's words settling in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for the inheritance, she was fighting for herself. The years of neglect, the years of being treated like an outsider had led to this moment. This was her chance to show them all that she was more than just the invisible one. Sophia turned back to the papers, taking one last look at the documents before folding them neatly and placing them in an envelope. She could already imagine Olivia's reaction. The disbelief, the panic. It was only a matter of time before her sister's perfect world came crashing down. Later that evening, she arranged to meet with her parents. They had to know. The plan was set into motion, and Sophia couldn't wait any longer. She needed to confront them, expose the truth, and take her rightful place. The dinner that evening was held at her parents' house, as it always was. A formal affair where they pretended everything was perfect, even when it was falling apart. Olivia, always the picture of composure, was unusually quiet. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Her father's eyes flicked nervously toward Sophia, but he said nothing. Her mother, ever the passive observer, stared into her glass of wine, her fingers nervously twisting the stem. Sophia could sense the undercurrent of unease in the room. They all knew something was coming. It was impossible not to. The tension was suffocating, but Sophia kept her composure, every muscle in her body poised to take action. After a few moments of strained silence, Olivia finally spoke, her voice shaking slightly. "What's going on, Sophia?" she asked, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. "You've been distant. Is there something you're not telling us?" Sophia's gaze met her sister's, and for the first time, Olivia's usual arrogance seemed to falter. Sophia didn't answer right away. She simply watched her sister, the woman who had once seemed untouchable, now on the verge of a breakdown. "You're not going to get away with it, Olivia," Sophia said quietly, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "I know everything. The hidden accounts, the forged documents. I have the proof. I'm done being ignored. I'm done letting you manipulate everything." Olivia's face turned pale, and for a moment she seemed paralyzed with fear. Her hands shook as she reached for her wineglass, her eyes darting around the room, looking for some escape. But it was too late. Sophia stood, reaching into her bag and pulling out the envelope. "This is all the proof I need," she said, placing it on the table. "The truth about everything you've done. Everything you've stolen from this family. It's all here." Olivia opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her mind was racing, her world crumbling around her. Sophia glanced at her parents. They were silent too. They had seen it coming, but now that it was here, they didn't know how to react. Their loyalty to Olivia was crumbling just as fast as their idealized image of her. Without waiting for their response, Sophia pulled out her phone and made a quick call. The family lawyer answered on the first ring. "We need to meet," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's time to discuss the future of the inheritance." The phone call ended, and Sophia turned to her family, her face resolute. "I've already set the wheels in motion. It's over, Olivia." As Olivia begins to implode under the pressure, Sophia delivers the final blow. She calls the family lawyer and requests a meeting to discuss the future of the inheritance. Olivia is left in stunned silence. Sophia sat in the family lawyer's office, her fingers tapping lightly on the cold glass surface of the table. The room around her was sleek and professional, a sharp contrast to the swirling emotions inside her. The lawyer, a tall man with graying hair and a calm demeanor, was going through the pile of documents in front of him. His gaze occasionally flicked to Sophia, who remained composed, every inch the woman who had finally taken control of her life. Her parents sat beside her, their faces drawn, the tension between them palpable. Olivia was across from them, her once perfect posture slumped, her eyes darting around the room. She hadn't spoken since the meeting began. She looked like a person who had already been defeated, her usually smooth exterior cracked wide open. The smug, untouchable sister Sophia had once envied now appeared small, desperate. The lawyer cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I've gone through the documents thoroughly," he said, his voice even. "There's no question about it. Olivia has been siphoning off portions of the inheritance and forging signatures to divert assets to hidden accounts. The evidence is irrefutable." Sophia didn't flinch. She had known this moment would come, and now that it was here, she felt only a quiet satisfaction. This was her time, the culmination of everything she had worked for. The years of striving, the pain of being overlooked, and now the chance to take what was rightfully hers. Olivia shifted in her seat, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached for a glass of water. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, though there was no conviction in her voice. "I didn't do anything wrong. These are all mistakes, misunderstandings." The lawyer didn't look up. He simply continued to read aloud, his tone neutral as he laid bare the full extent of Olivia's actions. "The signatures on these documents are proven to be forgeries. The funds you've hidden are substantial. It's clear that you've been acting in your own interest at the expense of the family." Sophia's parents shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Her father, who had always been a man of few words, opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Olivia, then at Sophia, as if trying to reconcile the two versions of his children in his mind. This isn't possible," Olivia's mother whispered, her voice strained. "Olivia, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't do this." Olivia's eyes were wide now, her shoulders hunched as if she were trying to shrink into herself. Her facade of control had shattered, and the desperation on her face was undeniable. Sophia watched her sisters collapse with a sense of quiet triumph. "No," Olivia said, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I only wanted to secure my future. I never thought it would come to this." Sophia stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. She turned to the lawyer, her voice cold but resolute. "This has gone on long enough. I demand that the inheritance be fairly distributed, starting with my share. Everything Olivia has stolen, every asset she's hidden needs to be returned, and I'm the one who's going to make sure that happens." The lawyer nodded, not surprised by her declaration. He had seen this coming. "I'll ensure the necessary legal steps are taken. Olivia will have no claim to any of the family assets moving forward." Sophia turned to her parents, who were still silent, their expressions a mixture of regret and disbelief. "You've been complicit in this," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "You've turned a blind eye for too long. This isn't just Olivia's fault. You've allowed this to happen, and now it's time to face the consequences." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but her father remained stoic. He said nothing. The weight of Sophia's words hung in the air between them, and for the first time, they seemed to realize that their wealth and privilege had come at the expense of their own family's integrity. Sophia returned her attention to Olivia, who was now visibly shaking. "You thought you could control everything, didn't you?" Sophia said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You thought you could manipulate this family and steal what wasn't yours. But it's over, Olivia. Your reign is finished." Olivia opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. Instead, she sank into her seat, her face pale, her eyes distant. She knew it was over. Sophia had won. The lawyer finally closed the folder with a soft snap. "The next steps are clear," he said. "I'll contact the necessary parties to begin the process of rectifying these matters. The family's financial situation will be restructured, and Olivia's involvement in the inheritance is null and void." Sophia felt a sense of finality wash over her. The battle was won, and the future she had fought for was now within her grasp. She had reclaimed her place in the family, not just through blood, but through her strength and resilience. She could feel the weight of the last few years lift off her shoulders, replaced by a sense of control and power. As she stood, ready to leave the lawyer's office, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and saw a message from her grandfather. "You did well, Sophia. Now, let's move forward." Her heart swelled. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The end of the past and the beginning of her new life. She wasn't just free from her family's oppression. She was free to build the life she had always deserved. Sophia walked out of the office, a sense of peace settling in her chest. The battle was over, and for the first time, she felt truly in control of her future. As Sophia exits the lawyer's office, she receives a message from her grandfather. "You did well, Sophia. Now, let's move forward." This marks the beginning of a new chapter for Sophia, free from the burden of her past. Sophia stood at the threshold of a new life. The weight of years of betrayal and silence finally lifted. As she watched her family crumble, the satisfaction was not born from revenge, but from the knowledge that justice had been done. She had faced the lies, confronted the truth, and emerged victorious. No longer a bystander, but the architect of her own fate. Justice, like a long-forgotten melody, may be delayed, but when it arrives, its echo resonates louder than any falsehood ever could. When the corrupt believe they are invincible, they are often just steps away from their downfall. Sophia had found her voice, and with it, the courage to stand tall. Sometimes it only takes one moment of defiance to change a lifetime of oppression. And so, she walked forward, free at last,